Last night in Charleston, South Carolina, 9 people were brutally killed at a historic black church. Now, I'm going to get to how we should refer to this in a second, but first let me give you some facts. The suspect is a 21-year-old man named Dylan Roof. He attended a Bible study for an hour before he started firing. 6 women and 3 men were killed, including the church's pastor, who's also a state senator, named Clementa Pinckney. As of right now, we only know one of the other victims. Only one of the other victims have been identified, Tawanza Sanders, who's a recent university graduate. This is as of about an hour ago or so. And when a survivor's son tried to talk this guy out of shooting more people, Dylan allegedly replied, "I have to do it. You rape our women, and you're taking over our country, and you have to go." Well, that's a curious comment. It almost sounds political. In fact, let's take a look at Dylan's picture now. See, this is interesting. You see those flags on his chest there? They represent the former British colony of Rhodesia, which of course is when white people tried to take over Zimbabwe. And the other flag represents apartheid South Africa. Apartheid, of course, infamous for being racist and based on segregation and basically controlling the entire black population. The white population controlled the black population. Now, most people in the media are referring to this incident as a mass shooting. Some people go a step further and they say, well, no, it's more of a hate crime. Almost nobody is calling it what it really is. Terrorism. Now, to give all the facts here, there was one website I saw, Raw Story, where on one point they refer to it as a hate crime for one article. For another article, it says terrorism. Outside of that, I think HuffPost is still referring to it as a hate crime. The main networks, I haven't seen any of them refer to it as terrorism. Now, when I say it's terrorism, I want everybody to understand something here. I'm actually using a definition. I'm not just calling it that and saying it's my opinion that it's terrorism. No, the definition I'm using is the use of violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. So even based on the limited information that we have right now about this guy and about all the people that he killed, this is terrorism. And in fact, by almost any definition of terrorism, this is terrorism. And again, right before I came on air, there was another fact that came out, which is that apparently Dylan was a Confederate sympathizer. He had on his license plate, it said the Confederate States of America. Now, also they say that for a long time he was heavily into drugs. He would regularly take Xanax, and he would also take Suboxone, which is like the treatment or the recovery that they give you for if you get addicted to pain pills like Vicodin or Percocet. Suboxone is supposed to block those receptors in your brain without giving you the high. So apparently he had troubles with the drug, and then he was, I guess he went into withdrawal, and then he started taking Suboxone. And that in and of itself, I don't know how much that tells us, because it could be the case that, you know, he was in withdrawal, which was one of the things that made him snap and do this, or it could be the case that he was on the pills, or it could be the case that he was off them for an extended period of time. But he was, we know for sure, in favor of the Confederacy. In fact, they spoke to some of his friends, and his friends were like, yeah, no, that guy had some serious racial animosity. So do this thought experiment, because I've been getting a lot of shit on Twitter talking about this. When I mention that it's terrorism, some people are saying, oh, no, it's not terrorism. It looks like it's murder. It looks like it's a lone wolf, a crazy person. Well, here's the test to determine whether or not you're biased on this issue. Listen to this sentence. A guy who loves apartheid kills 9 black people. So that's what just happened, right? He had the patch on his jacket. It's pro-apartheid. He's got the Confederate license plate. He's openly racist. He's very political in the way he thinks and in the type of crime he did. He killed all black people at a historic black church. So a guy who loves apartheid kills 9 black people. categorize that in your mind right now. What is that? Mass shooting, hate crime, terrorism, whatever else you want to call it. What is that? There's one sentence. Here's the next sentence. A guy who loves jihad kills 9 infidels. What would you call that? Okay, if you didn't call both of those things terrorism, you have a bias. You have a bias. Now, here's why this test is important, because a lot of people are unaware of their bias. Because with a lot of people, it's a subconscious bias. You just think because of given the cultural context that you're in, oh, a white guy killed people? Well, lone wolf, crazy person, mentally disturbed, had depression, what a complex character he was. Let's learn all the details about his personal life to try to piece together what this is really based on, because it can't be based on some kind of political ideology, because that's only for the Muslims, and that's only for other people. And by the same token, when it's about Muslims, if it was a Muslim who did the crime, your initial reaction, be honest, would be, it has to be terrorism. It must be connected to terrorism. Any Muslim that has ever done any crime anywhere throughout history, the gut reaction of a lot of people in America is, it must be terrorism. But when it's a white person, the gut reaction is, it must be a lone wolf, it must be a crazy person, must have depression, must have... So, and notice the underlying thing here. With one group, you're giving that person credit for being an individual. And you're giving the broader group credit for being sane and rational. When you say, well, it has to be a lone wolf, as in not part of the broader, wider community, because the wider community, by and large, are good people. Whereas if you look at the Muslim and say must be terrorism, you're saying because that is representative of the Muslim community, they are terrorists, so it is representative when somebody does something violent. So what this does is it shows how the way that we think is flawed, because we're not actually looking for the facts, and we're not actually looking for the real motives that go into any crime at any given time. We immediately default to our assumptions. And like I said, if you look at this situation and you say, I don't think it's terrorism, you embody the kind of mentality and the kind of ideology that says, come on, it's only really terrorism if it's a Muslim. And the reality is, that's not true. If you want the Confederacy back, if you're pro-apartheid, if you're openly racist, if you specifically targeted a historic black church and you killed black people, guess what? That's terrorism.